The Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. Please be joined, as always, on Wednesday by Florida Times-Union sports columnist Ryan O'Halloran. Ryan, it was a tough loss in Cincy. The Jaguars sort of gave that one away. Let's touch on that real quick before we get to a litany of other issues facing this team.
Yeah, good to join you, and I hope you appreciate it. I dropped your name in today's Times-Union.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so enjoy that.
I will. I hope the context didn't offend anybody.
See you at sundown.
Sundown? What, is the posse coming after me?
Curb your enthusiasm for people.
I love it.
So, anyways,
we'll get serious now and actually talk about the team.
The Bengals game. It was a giveaway. I tweeted right after the game was an inexcusable defeat. I stand by that. I'm sure the people in that building would agree with that. You win the toss, take the ball. You're up 7-0. You force a 3-and-out. You're back in the red zone, up to go 14-0. Interception. You knock out the starting quarterback, one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the sport. You put pressure on, you force 3 turnovers, you lose the game. If this team is playing interesting football in December, which I hope we all hope they will, this game may come back and bite them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to now go steal one somewhere in the final 15, which isn't to say they can't, but you got to even that out, to your point, and you absolutely can't let it happen again. The thing that I took away from the game, and I think it leads us into a massive game Sunday here in Jacksonville against Houston, is they're physical in a lot of elements. The run game is sensational. They're first in the NFL in rushing yards and yards per carry. But you don't have much of a chance on offense if your star receiver shies away from contact like Brian Thomas Jr. did. I can live with dropping passes. Occasionally. That's going to happen. Like we saw CD Lamb basically cost Dallas the Philadelphia game in week 1 because he had 3 huge drops. But they weren't effort drops. He just didn't make the catch. But it wasn't because he was afraid of getting hit. But boy, it maybe you've got a different opinion. I don't know. But it looked like multiple times against Cincinnati, Brian Thomas Jr. just was worried about contact and just didn't attack balls. It didn't high point balls and didn't look balls in that have to be caught. I mean, if he catches just one of 4, they probably win this game.
You made a good point on the radio on Monday where even after a catch he made, which wasn't really over the middle, but it was an in-breaking route, so it just went down instead of cutting it upfield. It didn't look like he was in any position to really get rocked. The alligator arms on the interception are inexcusable. And, the Jaguars come back on Monday and Liam Cohen says, well, he's been having a little bit of a wrist issue. Well, it wasn't on the injury report, so I'm sure the league office made a call to the Jaguars saying, hey, we get trying to stick up for your player, but you can't say that. So I think this is going to be a big game Sunday for Brian Thomas because if you're him, you're thinking going into the season 110, 115 catches. Well, Parker Washington has earned Trevor Lawrence's trust. They're always going to get Travis Hunter touches, even though his yards per catch are one of the worst in the league. Brenton Strange is coming on. Diami Brown is outside his touchdown drop. He's done a couple of good things. So there's more mouths to feed on this offense. Plus they're running a lot, which means less targets. So Thomas needs to suck it up. You're a first-round pick. You're regarded going into the season as one of the best receivers in the league. You have to start showing it.
Well, and that's the thing, too. To me, it creates a bigger issue because, again, it's one thing. People are going to make mistakes. These guys are human. But it's the effort and the playing timid that I think doesn't go well over in the locker room. I mean, these offensive linemen that are involved in heavy collisions every snap, they never know when they're going to get rolled up on. They can't be looking over their shoulder for, who's getting ready to, maybe dive into my ankle or knee. Obviously on defense, you're in a clean manner as you can, you're head hunting, for contact. I even in his receiver room, I mean, Parker Washington plays tough. De'Ami Brown, yeah, he had a tough drop, but Liam Cohen's talked about his effort without the ball. Brenton Strange is absolutely destroying people with his physicality. So I think the team is physical. I think defensively they've been physical, but you can't have him not playing to that level and playing again timid, frightened of contact, and again it wasn't just one instance in Cincinnati. I mean, to have 4 different cases where you can clearly see his neck, shrinking into his shoulders because he's trying to protect his head. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of trust in Trevor Lawrence. He's had 300-yard games with Mac Jones and 1 with Trevor Lawrence. So I do think it stems to a trust issue with Trevor that they're going to have to figure out. But he can't put what he put on film on Sunday. That cannot happen again. And again, that's not to say he can't drop passes. He's going to drop a pass here and there. But the playing frightened has to stop, or they are going to have a massive issue with him.
Yeah, I agree. And I would expect Liam Cohen telling Brian Thomas today, first drive, you're running a shallow cross or you're running a skinny post. We have to end this narrative pronto.
Well, and I think it plays into Houston's hands, because if I'm Stingley and any of the guys, certainly Gardner Johnson, who we know is one of the league's most ferocious trash talkers, I mean, they're going to be putting it in his head immediately that you better stay frightened against us. I agree with you. I think it's Liam Cohen it's unique. I think he's done a great job so far by what we've seen. I mean, their numbers far surpass what they were doing through 2 games last season with Doug Peterson and Press Taylor. So I think you have to really love what Liam Cohen has brought, particularly his offensive acumen. But he's had a lot of challenges, and this is a big one for a first-time head coach. Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was sort of a misstep to bring up a wrist injury. First off, Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't deserve any excuse being made for him. Yeah. I mean, it was one of the worst games I've ever seen a receiver put on film. Again, from an effort standpoint. But even beyond that, it just, to me, it's something that you got to get it fixed. I think Houston's going to try to accentuate it if they can. So we're going to learn a lot about Brian Thomas Jr. because he's part of a physical team. The Jaguars have been finesse in years past, but if you're leading the league in rushing and you're leading the league in takeaways, you're playing physical football. Mm-hmm. So it's just not going to work. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, not to we've talked at great length. Well, to wrap us up on this, and what do you expect from Brian Thomas Jr.?
I mean, I would probably send him downfield a couple times, because right now this team is not making a lot of plays down the field. They're averaging 10.4 yards per catch. They're 22nd in passing yards per play. So, okay, somebody's got to go downfield. Parker Washington's 40-yarder, that was mostly after the catch. Travis Etienne's, that was a screen pass turned into a big one. Same with Tootin. So I think overall, regardless of Thomas, I think the next step for this passing game is to lengthen the field a little bit. And that's where your play action comes into play. You are running it on teams at will so far. Now you have to translate that into taking more shots down the field, because right now they're having to work really hard to get down the field. They're not getting a lot of chunks. So, maybe throw Travis Hunter downfield more, get Brenton Strange a little more vertical. So I think this offense continues to evolve, but I think the next step is going to be, okay, you got to be better in the red zone, and you have to make bigger plays in the pass game.
Yeah, without a doubt. There was news late afternoon yesterday. The team releases Darnell Savage. Did that surprise you at all? Were you surprised they couldn't get even a 7th and 2028 for him?
Yeah, was on both, and I thought because his base salary is pretty manageable for a team to acquire that money. Most of his money was tied up in a signing bonus. That's not on that would be the next team. Obviously, he had no value. They probably tried to deal him on cut down day. But then you go into the first game, he plays 28 snaps. You go into the second game, he plays 20 snaps because the Jaguars really did play a lot of dime, 6 defensive back personnel. So it'd be interesting. I mean, who knows if we'll get the real story later today, but I was a little bit surprised because he just wasn't collecting dust. He wasn't a healthy scratch. He did have a role. Does this mean Antonio Johnson at safety? Do they go two safeties and 4 corners? Maybe that's a little bit different look. So that did surprise me a little bit.
Let's get it to Houston. They played Monday night, so they're on a short week, and they're now desperate. I mean, it's a long season, but 0-2. If they leave Jacksonville 0-3, it's close to being, curtains for Houston. What are you seeing from the Texans that you think will give the Jaguars issues, and what are some things that you think the Texans are going to have to figure out before 1 o'clock on Sunday?
Well, you start with Houston's edge rushers with Hunter and Anderson. It's up to Little and Harrison to have good games. I assume they'll get some help. Houston's offense looks broken. They have a new coordinator. They're still trying to figure that out. They're 28th in yards. They're 28th in passing. C.J. Stroud just did not look comfortable Monday night against Tampa Bay. They're still working through some issues on their offensive line. So, they've scored 2 touchdowns in 2 games on offense. So they are really laboring. And so if you're the Jaguars, you try and take advantage of that, stop the run, and force Stroud to, do some things through the air. Nico Collins is a good player. On the flip side, the Texans, that was a physical game Monday night against Tampa Bay. Now they get a short week. Take advantage of that. If you win the toss, Liam, take the ball again. It's worked so far. So, this isn't a loser leaves town match for Houston, but it's pretty dang close. I think it's a must win for the Jaguars because then you go to San Francisco, then you have Kansas City at home, Seattle at home. So, this is a key game, and I'm going to pick the Jaguars to win it.
I like the Jaguars as well because I just see them as the more balanced team. I mean, to your point, Houston, you mentioned some great offensive numbers for them that demonstrates their futility. One that stood out to me, they're last in the NFL on third down right now offensively. So they're having trouble sustaining drives. I agree with you. Stroud does not look comfortable. And, and not having Joe Mixon, I was surprised they didn't talk about that more on Monday night because I don't even know that Mixon's name came up. Yeah. They're trying to get by with Nick Chubb, who did break the 25-yarder on one of the rare plays where the Houston offensive line really did its job. But Nick Chubb doesn't frighten you, I think, at this point in his career anymore. He's just had so many injuries. And Nico Collins is a good player for sure. But there isn't much else that I see that Houston has right now that's working on that side of the ball. So, defensively, I think they're outstanding, and they're going to give the Jaguars problems. Little and Harrison, I think, are going to have trouble blocking them on the edge. Stingley, I think, is going to make it tough on Brian Thomas Jr. if he does shadow him like he did Mike Evans. So it could be the first 1 to 20 wins the game, but I think the Jaguars have the better chance of doing that. Because, again, they just have more that they can go to so far. When you're leading the NFL in rushing, Houston's obviously going to have to honor that. And even if BTJ struggles continue, to your point, you do feel comfortable getting the running backs involved in the passing game. Certainly Travis Hunter, De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington, Brenton Strange can get the job done. So, I'm sort of with you. And to me, this is a manhood game as well because of the chance to throw a haymaker and send Houston to 0-3, the fact that you're 2-12 against them in your last 14, the fact that Al-Shaair cheap shotted your quarterback last year and knocked him out for the season, the fact that you're coming off just a really disappointing loss in Cincinnati. Like, to me, this is a game where I agree with you. Houston is very physical, but if the Jaguars can't match that, there's something wrong with this team's DNA.
Yeah, and you mentioned Texans last on third down. They're also last in the red zone. They have no grade point average. They're 0%. The next closest point. The next closest team is at 14.3. So one thing we talked about during the game on Sunday is Liam Cohen's offense has had these two defenses on their heels. Now they're stepping up in class. You mentioned some of the Texans' talent. So I want to see more of Tootin. Every time he gets the ball, he makes something happen, even if it's something out of nothing. Do you try and get Strange going earlier? What do you do with Travis Hunter? So I think I think the Jaguars offense will have some answers, but I'd also look, they finally got that screen game going. It was bad against Carolina. It was very good against Cincinnati. To me, that's how you combat two edge rushers. Tampa Bay did it the other night. So I do think this is going to be a game where the Jaguars should be able to gain some yards, but you've seen it 100 times before, Hayes. 0-2 desperate offense, they're going to throw a lot at the Jags, and it's up to them to have the Jags defense have some answers as well. If I'm Campanile, I would throttle back my pressure a little bit. I would play more coverage because they got burned a couple times. And it's great that you're sending 5-6 guys, but maybe sometimes you defend the first down marker instead.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. Jacob Simons is kind enough to be helping us out with Duval Rundown, the running the technical side of things. And Jacob, let's hear from our sponsor, please.
I'm Rick Ballou, Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, proud partner of the Jaguars. Drive with confidence. Every new vehicle comes with our exclusive lifetime warranty. 7030 Commonwealth Avenue or online at jackswest.com.
So as we continue this, Ryan, first off, give us an idea of what you're working on and what we can look forward to reading in the Times Union as we have another 4 or 5 minutes here.
Yeah, a couple of things I'm poking around on is one thing I want to ask Liam Cohen, and I hate relitigating the Cincinnati game 3 days later, but I was only allowed one question on Monday. And one thing that the Trayvon Walker hit on Joe Burrow on the first drive and the Devin Lloyd interception return in the fourth quarter, I wanted to ask Liam, should those plays be allowed to continue to go? Which I think yes. Because that means if it's a turnover, it's an automatic booth review. Maybe they got it right with Burrow, but I would like to see them take another look at the Devin Lloyd thing and see if actually he was down. There wasn't a conclusive replay. The second thing is on defense, what do they do minus Savage? Is it Antonio Johnson in the dime spot? How are they using Travis Hunter? How does he bounce back from a couple of those penalties? Yay or nay on the legitimacy of those calls? They're now 3 weeks in. What has become their sweet spot in terms of getting Hunter ready to play both spots? Because he was at over 80 snaps, and so and the last thing is, you mentioned the Texans' history here. These haven't been great Texans teams. They've just been a bad Jaguars teams. So it's time to reverse that trend and win a division game at home. Play with urgency, which you have been doing, and go to 2-1 and stay behind, maybe tie Indianapolis or stay a game behind the Colts if they beat Tennessee and go to 3-0.
Yeah, and another element to this game that I think benefits the Jaguars is how the schedule makers, I think, did the Jaguars and particularly Liam Cohen a favor here in who Houston played in weeks 1 and 2. They start with the Rams. So obviously, Liam Cohen can dissect everything McVay did offensively, what he threw against Houston, what worked, what didn't. Now, the Rams only scored 14 points. They won the game 14-9, but still. So I think that film is really beneficial for Liam Cohen for what he wants to utilize, and again, what worked and what didn't. Then Houston plays Tampa in week 2, where Liam was just at Tampa as offensive coordinator last year. So obviously, he's very familiar with Tampa's personnel, and applying that to how they did against Houston. So, and the fact that it's a short week, but even forgetting that, and this will be something that I'll either ask Liam today or tomorrow. It might be better for Friday. But in terms of that, like, how much does that help, if any, that they have played two teams that you're very familiar with, either scheme or personnel wise?
Yeah, I think Tampa, especially, that was on my notepad here too. I mean, those are his guys that were running those plays the other night. So I think that I think my guess is that it helps in the preparation because, okay, we run that play. This is how it fared against the Texans. So if anything, I think it may help Liam and the offensive staff sort of narrow down what they're going to run. And it's still a big menu, but hey, if that didn't work, let's throw it out. So, this offensive line is doing great as a run blocking unit, but Walker Little got pushed back on an interception. There were a couple other plays. So it's what kind of plan do they have for Anderson and Hunter? Do they go more 12 personnel with some chips, which would still allow your running back to get out as an outlet receiver? So, now as you get into week 3, Hayes, the chess match really picks up. You got 2 games worth of tape on each opponent. They have 2 games of tape on you. Now it's about, okay, how do these young coordinators start adjusting?
Without a doubt, great stuff, Ryan. We always enjoy it. We've got to get down to the stadium. Liam Cohen talking in about an hour, but always enjoy it. Read Ryan's stuff, Jacksonville.com. He does an outstanding job, and we're certainly lucky to have him back in the market. Ryan, man, thank you so much. I'll see you in about an hour.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you in an hour.
All right, that sounds good. We'll be back on Friday for Duval Rundown with Rick Ballou. Until then, enjoy your day. Thanks for watching Duval Rundown.